Samuel de Champlain, Father of New France, written by Charlie Miller Shannon. Focus question: why is Champlain called the Father of New France? Worth to know: administration, appointed, colonists, conquest, convert, exploit, habitation, indigenous, missionaries, navigate, populated, settlement, sea of sight, treaty, vanquish, venture, voyages. Table of contents: a prisoner of England. 4. Who was Champlain? 7. First visit to North America. 9. Exploring St. Lawrence. 13. Hard times in Acadia. 14. The founding of Quebec. 17. Last return to New France. 20. The lasting legacy. 21. Philosophy. 23. A prisoner of England. The date backs at July 16,029. The place was Quebec. The trading settlement founded Samuel de Champlain in what's called St. Lawrence. Long-standing homelands of indigenous people were fast wanted as part of North America. So did English. In the river next to the fort, English ships bombed at anchor. The vessels were under command of David Kirky, a private English sea captain and adventurer, his brother Louis Kirky, brothers 5 in all, that had been appointed by England to capture New France. The Kirger Siege of Quebec was a part of a larger war between France and England. The countries had been fighting each other on and off for the last 500 years. Now the war had expanded to North America, with both countries fighting on secure control over lands of indigenous nations such as Wabanaki, and indigenous nations such as Haudenosaunee Conference species. England and France wanted to exploit these lands for rapid wealth and form timber for its minerals. Champlain was on its best to secure French foothold in Wanakaba, Wyandot, and Innu lands. But now he could see that this situation was hopeless. He had fewer than 100 people in the fort, including no more than 18 fighting men. To make it worse, almost all the food was gone. The defenders were starving. Who was Champlain? Our knowledge of Samuel de Champlain is incomplete, especially a few details of his early life. Champlain's father, a sea captain, taught Samuel he began sailing with his uncle on long voyages in Spanish territory in North America, now the Caribbean. During all his travels, Champlain sketched local plants and animals, taking notes to describe them. Back in France in 1602, Champlain presented King Henry IV a book of his sketches and descriptions. King Henry was impressed with the young sea voyager. He was convinced Champlain would be a good choice to help strengthen France's position in North America. The king wanted to create more colonies to ensure French access to riches in the North American continent. Colonies would populate the French people and hold military force against other nations. The French king also wanted to convert the indigenous people to Christianity and seize their lands from the crown. Common strategy for colonization. First trip to North America. In 16,003, King Henry sent Champlain to New France as part of group interest in trading with indigenous people for furs. One of the main reasons establishing post furs North America was obtained first, mainly beaver pelts. For centuries, beaver pelt had been highly valued in Europe. Hat made from beaver pelts were popular fashion items. By the early 16,000s, beaver population in Europe have been nearly wiped out as by the demand for beaver. But North America had a huge number of beavers. King Henry instructed Champlain to find good sites to establish a fur trading colony. This gave him a second task: search for Northwest Passage, a water route from North America to provide a shortcut to Asia. By early 15,000s, explorers had determined that America extended an unbroken land from Arctic to the tip of South America for the Europeans. West from the Pacific Ocean, Asia way through or above North America. Many explorers searched for a water route could not through the North American continent, but none of them have found it because it didn't exist. The search for a Northwest Passage. Finding a northern sea lane in the market of Asia, the Northwest Passage was a goal of many European explorers. The normal sea route of Western Europe to Asia went around the Cape of Good Hope and the southern of Africa. The route was Africa long, and the huge waves of southern latitudes was very dangerous. Merchants had long desired to find shorter, safer route in 14,009 too, but ran to America. If such route has been found, it could be fine risky, rather than something to be shared, something to be seized for the country's exclusive use. Champlain's group sailed 2 ships in March 16th and 3rd. After being tossed with violent storms during a 10-week voyage, they enter a wide river known as St. Lawrence, draw anchors in harbor where they meet at Saguenay River. The next day, Champlain and his first encounter with indigenous people of the area. A group of thousands had gathered on the far side of Saguenay River, singing and playing music. They celebrate a victory over the shared enemy, Hondunisans, commonly called the Iroquois. Champlain crossed this river to meet them. This meant the first experience with Frenchmen. Land to the north had been claimed with France in 1534 and another French explorer, Jean-Louis Cartier. Cartier failed to attack the found colony in New France, but he opened French fur trade. The Haudenosaunee Iroquois. The Haudenosaunee is not a single tribe. Back then they were a league of 5 nations, later 6, spoke related English and have formed an alliance with English. At the time of Champlain's arrival, they numbered 12,000, but in 16,040, smallpox has killed at least half. Indigenous people on the fur trade. Canada indigenous people were skilled at trapping animals for their fur and trading those furs with Europeans. However, in addition to making money in fur trade, Europeans had other goals: seizing indigenous land, covering indigenous people to Christianity, and blocking English advance into areas. Since indigenous people had little exposure to Europeans up until this time, they had little immunity to the disease. Now many indigenous people died. As more of these massive population crash only helped European colonizers. Since lands have been caught by indigenous people, now have fewer living. With the aid of indigenous man who spoke French, Champlain led an Innu chief. The southern Innu people on Montages fought for mountain. The chief said he hoped French would help them vanquish their enemies, and the Haudenosaunee. Champlain saw that becoming allies with these tribes offered great possibilities. In return for standing with them against the Haudenosaunee, they might help with him expanding his fur trade, exploring this new land, and in time acquire for France. Exploring St. Lawrence. Once the campaign men explored much of the Saguenay River, set out to explore St. Lawrence Valley. On the way up the river, they stopped at spots in Montagnais called Quebec, meaning that the river narrows. So the French became Quebec, one time English town. Champlain thought it would be a perfect place for French settlement. Over several later expeditions, Champlain ventured some 2,500 kilometers, 1,550 miles, while exploring St. Lawrence, convinced that the river and lakes in New France would contain water throughout the Pacific Ocean. North Passage he didn't find as much route, nor he would ever.